Even though the Chicago Bulls won their last game against the Charlotte Hornets, there's still some struggles going on with this team, both on and off the court. And things are about to get real interesting as we get closer and closer to the trade deadline. We got a fresh set of trade rumors around Coby White and other players, renewed buzz around Jonathan Kaminga, and updates on the Anthony Davis situation. And we got to break down tonight's matchup against the New Orleans Pelicans. We're getting into all that and more right after this. What's going on, Bulls fans? Welcome to another episode of Chicago Bulls Central, your number one spot for everything Chicago Bulls related. I'm the host there, Haize, but more importantly, you guys can follow the channel at Bulls Central Pod on every social media platform we happen to be on. With that said, let's go ahead and get into this content for today, y'all. We're going to preview today's matchup against the New Orleans Pelicans. We kind of want to do a roundup of all the rumors around the Chicago Bulls, and it's typically the same thing that we've seen, right? We see the Bulls mentioned in a lot of trade rumors, and then stuff comes out saying, oh, well, maybe the Bulls aren't necessarily in that, right? And over the last couple of days, we've seen the Bulls linked to Anthony Davis. We've seen Jonathan Kuminga trades, talked and floated around, Matas Sabonis trades, all talking and floating around, and a number of different outlets have kind of updated us on that, right? So while we heard that the Minnesota Timberwolves had an interest in Coby White, we then heard yesterday that they could pivot to more towards a player like Trey Jones on this Bulls team, right? But as it stands right now, the Minnesota Timberwolves are not pressed, or nothing's going to happen right away, even though in the initial reporting we did hear that they don't want to wait till the February 5th trade deadline to get something done. So we'll see, right? I think overall right now, Minnesota's trying to gauge how big of a trade do they need to be involved in. Right now, we did hear yesterday as well, it came out late last night that, hey, Minnesota is kind of in. If they can get involved in the Giannis Antetokounmpo trade, they'd be involved in that. So I think at this point, Minnesota's they have their chips. They're ready to push them in. They have their assets that they are ready to push in for a deal, but they may be trying to wait for what that deal eventually ends up being. And that's a smart thing. I think that, that's a place where a lot of teams want and need to be at. So that's what they're looking at, right? So the Minnesota Timberwolves trade, it doesn't seem like while it was initially reported as some interest, and it does seem like they still have interest in Coby White, anything pressing, anybody who thinks that something is going to happen sooner rather than later, it seems like it's not going to, and it may not even be for Coby White if it did, right? So there goes the update on that one. As far as the Anthony Davis, we got this one from Mark Stein that says the Bulls' interest in Anthony Davis has seemingly disappeared. Now, this makes a lot of sense. Not only would acquiring Anthony Davis push the Bulls close up to the second tax apron, right? And we're not even talking about the luxury tax. The Anthony Davis contract is so large that regardless, just the contract alone makes it difficult for the Chicago Bulls considering the ownership and the limit they have on not paying the luxury tax, right? Then on top of that, the injuries. We heard that a lot of teams in the NBA have hesitation. And while, Bulls fans, oh my God, how could you not be interested in Anthony Davis? It seems like a lot of teams share the Bulls' kind of concern over Anthony Davis and his health. And that's part of the reason why, the Bulls aren't in on Anthony Davis. And a lot of teams seem to be out on Anthony Davis, the Bulls included, because of the health and the contract. And as teams continue to look to want to avoid the second tax apron, that's the Bulls are definitely, the Bulls want to avoid the luxury tax. So much less, and that made sense. I think for most Bulls content creators, even if you talked about the AD and we could talk about how AD helps the Bulls on the court, there's no doubt that contract just limits your flexibility. And if you're going to make that move, you better goddamn well make sure that you're making that move and it makes you a contender, at least in your conference, right? And so when we heard that the Bulls were interested in Anthony Davis but didn't want to give up any pieces of their core, I think that kind of took them out of the running for AD. And, that's just the reality of it. That's where we sit. That's where things are, right? So there you go on that one. Then let's Mark Stein did also talk about Jonathan Kaminga, which we talked about yesterday, that the Golden State, that the Bulls do still have an expected interest in Jonathan Kaminga once the Warriors really do start shopping him after January 15th, when he's eligible to be moved. And here's the thing. All my thoughts on Kaminga still stay the same. I don't think Kaminga fits with what this team wants to do. I think there's no world in which Coby White and Jonathan Kaminga both on your team with Josh Giddey makes any sense. That's just looking at those, so that's not even taking the Matas Buzelis aspect of it. Now, I know that for a lot of Bulls fans, kind of the luster on Matas has worn off this year because they had a unrealistic expectation on what type of jump he was going to make in year 2, which I have been telling you guys for a long time to not expect Anthony Davis. Not expect Matas Buzelis to make a super huge leap in year 2. It typically doesn't happen like that, right? And so I've been on that all off season, and so to see that not happen, that doesn't really surprise me. But for some Bulls fans, they're off Matas, and that's perfectly fine if that's where you sit at, right? I think I never have any problems with somebody saying, "Hey, a player got to show me." Now Matas has improved in areas, but some of the biggest ones, like him saying he wants to be coached like a defensive player of the year candidate. His defense has been one of the most suspect things of his game, especially against some of the more physical power forwards. So there's that part of it, right? So, but to go back to it, right, Jonathan Kuminga, I just don't think really fits this Bulls team very well. He's not a defender at that wing position. He's a player that needs the ball in his hands a lot. There's this whole now thread going on that shows how Jonathan Kuminga has broken the offense. So Steve Kerr's not wrong. Jonathan Kuminga does not play within the flow of an offense. And for a Bulls team that's trying to gain that flow, you got to look at those things. So I think that's all something that you have to look at. And we'll see if the Bulls can, what happens with the Bulls as Kaminga becomes available. And then finally, Domantas Sabonis. We keep hearing the interest that the Bulls could have in Domantas Sabonis. It's not that I don't think Sabonis actually fits on this team. I've seen some articles that question the fit of Sabonis. I think when you look at Vooch, when Vooch was playing well, we've seen it, right? Like we've seen last year where Vooch was the most consistent Bulls player. Sabonis is better at the things that Vooch does well, and he understands his limitations of not turning into a three-point shooter, but letting the three come kind of naturally to him. But Sabonis keeps his ass in the paint. Not really a defender, doesn't do anything for that. But it's wavering back and forth on the Bulls' interest. So as things stand now, and I always say this, is that I'm sure there's some posturing. Even if the Bulls do have an interest in some of these players, I think at this point in time, it makes sense for them to kind of show like, hey, we're interested, but at this price, kind of talk us down, those type of things. But we'll see if the Bulls do anything. I want to maintain, though, it's highly unlikely the Bulls do anything. I'm just going to be honest with you. I still think it's more likely than not the Bulls don't make a move. And we'll see where that gets us. But let me know your guys' thoughts on that down below. But we got a game to preview today, right? Today, the Bulls take on the Pelicans. And Zion Williamson is listed as questionable. If Zion does play, we already know the matchup issues that he presents for the Chicago Bulls. The only Bulls player that we have that defends Zion decently is Patrick Williams. But that was literally, Patrick Williams has this reputation of guarding Zion well. And I think it was literally in Patrick Williams' first year in the league, he guarded Zion well. And maybe a little bit into his third year too. But if you go and look at the numbers, Zion has literally cooked Patrick Williams more times than he's not. So Patrick Williams isn't some Zion stopper. But he probably does offer the best combination of things to try to stop Zion. I don't want to see Isaac Okoro on Zion. I'm terrified what Matas Buzelis would do guarding Zion, to be honest with you. So if Zion does play, it presents such an interesting matchup issue for the Bulls that we're just going to have to see what they do. And then, of course, there are a lot of Bulls fans that are looking to wait to have an I told you so moment when it regards to Derek Queen. And here's the thing. I think Derek Queen is going to have a big game probably regardless. But are they going to win? We've seen Derek Queen have some huge games that resulted in losses. So we know that Derek Queen can still have a big game and the Pelicans can still lose. And that gets us in what the Bulls need to do to win, right? So rebound. You have to rebound on both sides of the ball if you want to beat any team. That's just this team's thing. The Pelicans come in as the 17th best rebounding team per rebounding percentage in the NBA. But over the last 10 games, they've actually been 10th. They're getting over 50% of the total rebounds out there. And they're the 14th best offensive rebounding team and the 15th best defensive rebounding team. The Bulls have to rebound from the onset of this game and impose their presence from the jump. We have to rebound the ball well. A team like the Pelicans, if you do not rebound the ball well, it's going to be difficult to beat. I don't care what their record is. Rebound. Limit turnovers. You have to limit those turnovers for them. This Pelicans team is 15th in steal percentage over the last 10 games. They're getting in those passing lanes. You already know Jose Alvarado has already been a player that has cooked the Bulls, getting in those passing lanes multiple times over the last few years, but it's not even just him. They have active hands. Watch out for the active hands of this Pelicans team. If you don't do that, it's going to be there. While the Pelicans do rank as one of the worst teams in the league per defensive rating, that's still in the rebounding, that's where they can really get you. They're 28th in the league in defensive rating. Even over the last 10 games where they've only gone 1-4, they still rank 26th defensive rating wise. So this is not a team that shapes up to give you a lot of friction defensively, but we all know that changes with Zion being on the court as well, right? So, with them being steals, with them being a good defensive rebounding team, those are two things that even if their on-ball defense isn't great, those are some things where they can cause the Bulls some problems. So the Bulls need to lock in with that absolutely. So, and then offensively, the Pelicans ranked 11 offensively over the last 10 games, 11th offensively. You cannot overlook that. And over the last 5 games, they ranked 11th. Over the last 10 games, they ranked 10th. You cannot overlook this team at all. While their offensive rating is 26th on the year, you cannot overlook what they've done over the last 5 and 10 games. They have been really good offensively at an offensive rating of 119.8. This team has found ways to put up points. Part of that is playing through Derek Queen, his ability to facilitate, and his ability to put up big points. Watch out for this team. So the Bulls defensively need to be locked in, because if the Bulls defense stays on Tills all game long, it can get very difficult. So what to watch for this Bulls team? One, Nikola Vucevic's minutes. How well does Nikola Vucevic play after getting benched in basically the majority of the second half? He only played 7 minutes in the third quarter, no minutes in the fourth quarter. How does Vuce bounce back? Was that a wake-up call for Nikola Vucevic? And especially against a center like Derek Queen that is going to get physical with him, how does Vuce factor into that, right? Now, Derek Queen isn't a great defender. He's had some moments of great defense, and I think even with Derek Queen being a little bit shorter, his strength, he's going to probably find out pretty quickly into that game, hey, this motherfucker Vuce can't really fuck with me. So we're going to see. And so that makes Zach Collins and Jalen Smith even that more important in their minutes, right? Secondly, the Coby Giddey minutes. Those guys being on the court together. How many of those minutes do we win? They combined for 46 points in the last game. Now, that wasn't all with their minutes on the court together. You staggered that, but this performance of this backcourt now that we have our starting lineup, our projected starting lineup, at the beginning of the season, fully healthy with Isaac Okoro, how well do we play in those Giddey, in those Coby minutes? Because as we're talking about Coby White, his potential future here with the Chicago Bulls, that's an important factor into that. Also, Matas needs to have a big game. I want to see Matas have it. He got outplayed and out-rebounded by Patrick Williams. And no knock on P. Will. Shout out to P. Will for what he was able to give the Bulls in the last game. P. Will isn't always the most consistent, but the Matas needs to have a big game today. And I would love to see a Matas Buzelis that takes it offensively to the New Orleans Pelicans. I don't expect much from him defensively, especially if he's guarding Zion Williamson. But let's see what he does today. I want to see a big game from Matas. And then lastly, the Bulls bench. When the Bulls are good, the bench is good. We saw that again in last game. And now that we've gotten most of our bench back, Io's still listed as doubtful. We'll see what happens with Kevin Huerter. We'll see if he ends up playing. I don't think he's going to come back quite yet. But we'll see what this bench can do. Patrick Williams, Jalen Smith, these guys had big games. Zach Collins had an important role. Trey Jones had his moments, right? We need to see these guys have another big game for this Bulls team so that we can get another dub. So let's see if the Bulls bench shows up big again. But that's it for the game analysis. It is Sunday. That means it is Mailbag Day. Let's get into these voicemails, man. This one's from Eastside Buck.
Yo, what up, Haize? I'm Eastside Buck, calling from Richmond, Virginia, 804, that is. Oh, man, I'm hurt, pissed off. Like, I be ready to punch the wall, probably just like everybody else when I see my team play, man. I just don't understand it. They need to learn how to play through adversity when they ain't hitting shots, they ain't hitting them threes, instead of them getting all in their feelings. They need to find another way to score, which is go to the rack with it. And Bruce has to go. He has to go. I know you heard it a million times, but I would like to have a center with his qualities as far as his shooting and things like that. But I want him to be angry. I want him to be like, when he get on the court, like his name is Grimlock. You remember Grimlock from Dino Box? I want him to have that fire in him, you know? Because Derek Queen is dogging right now, and we could have had him. But I love to have Trey Murphy with us. It'd be nice if we could have both of them. But for real, we need to fire everybody. AK, all of them, from top to bottom. And the coaches I think we should have, and don't laugh at me, I think the coaches should be Thibodeau, Stacey King, and my main Haize, a.k.a. Flip. I think you'll be a good coach, man. Might sound funny, but it ain't funny to me, man. You got a lot of basketball knowledge. Some things I might go on to, but for the most part, man, you got a lot of knowledge, and I be stealing some of it when I be getting around my friends having my little talks, and I be using your little basketball knowledge because I watch you every day, man. I appreciate it. Keep it up. I still see red just a little bit, but I ain't going nowhere. I ain't trading. My grandson said I need to go and find another team, but I can't do that, man. I've been here since the Iceman, and I ain't going nowhere.
You hit the nail on the head when you said the Bulls need to learn to play through adversity. Now, this voicemail was left before the Bulls win over the Charlotte Hornets, but you're still right. That's the way that this team needs to play, and that was the thing that I questioned at the beginning of the season, right? Even when they were playing well, it's like, okay, when you start facing some adversity, do you keep doing the things, keep playing with the energy that you were playing that got you wins? And we saw after that first 5-game losing streak, the Bulls didn't have the energy. Now, in the last game against the Hornets, they looked like they came out with a lot of that same energy. They lost it a little bit, but then they regained it. Can you play that? Can you go through that adversity and fight through it as a team, right? Hopefully they can build off the win against the Hornets, know what they need to do there, right? And we'll see. Now, as far as coaching, I will never get into coaching. I'm far too passionate and too much of a hothead. I'm just going to be 100% honest with you on that one. I can't do it. I can't do it. And I doubt Tibbs gets another head coaching role anytime soon. I think Tibbs is going to be somebody who ends up being one of those assistants, a super assistant on somebody's bench and coaches that defense much like he did for that Celtics championship team. But I think we kind of see coaching pass up some coaches and the league kind of pass those guys up. And I think the league may have passed up what Tibbs' sensibilities are as a head coach. But hey, I think the world of Tibbs. I hope that he does get another head coaching job. I just don't know if it's going to happen for him, but we shall see. All right, let's get into this next voicemail. This one's from Lakel.
What's up, Haize? This your boy, YKOTS, long-time subscriber, first-time caller. I'm going to be quick and straight to the point with what I'm trying to say. First off, your podcast is amazing, one of my favorites to go to as far as Bulls news, Bulls, updates, anything with the players, trade rumors, etc. You are the man. Secondly, I'm not too sure about this team going forward. I mean, yeah, we got some bright spots with Matas and Noah, Esenge, and even Josh Giddey to a degree. I think I have faith in him as well. But as far as everybody else, I think everybody else is expendable. And when it comes to being expendable, where does the team go from there as far as like trades and, drafts, anything going forward with that degree. And then I'm looking at this whole Anthony Davis trade rumor. Like, no, he should not be thought of as a perfect suitor for the Bulls. I mean, yeah, when he's healthy, he's a beast, but we know he's nowhere near being that healthy big man that he used to be. He's too inconsistent when it comes to health. And my question is this: if another team picks him up in the East, say like the Raptors or the Hawks, would that be a big mistake by the Bulls by letting another, Eastern Conference competitor pick him up before them? I mean, like I said, it's not good for the Bulls to pick him up, but I mean, should the Bulls prioritize getting a suitable big man before, Eastern Conference rival picks up Anthony Davis? I mean, I don't know. Maybe I'm sounding like I'm contradicting myself by asking this question, but I don't know. It could be a double-edged sword if Anthony Davis gets picked up by an Eastern Conference team other than the Bulls, in my opinion. But you let me know what you think about all that, man. I appreciate you for letting me take the time to leave my thoughts. Keep doing your thing, brother. I'm always enjoying listening to you and hearing what you got to say about these Bulls. Keep doing your thing. Much love and respect. Peace.
I think it's fair to look at players as expendable, right? I want to be clear here. I do think it's fair to say, hey, well, this player is not necessarily that you can't move on. Like sometimes we talk about like, hey, the Bulls absolutely can't trade X player. And I get that and not looking as it expendable. But just because players could be expendable or not, it doesn't mean you just let everybody go, right? There's that. It really depends on the moves that are available to you at any given time. As far as Anthony Davis, I don't think the Bulls are in a position to not let another team get him. I just don't think. I think the Bulls have to focus on making moves that improve their team and not being worried about making moves to stop other teams from improving. They have to improve themselves first, right? So you can't be in that spot. I don't think the Bulls are in that spot with, hey, let's get this guy so this other team in the East can't get him. I don't think they're in the spot to do that. You have to make moves that actually improve your team, where you are and where you see this team going. Now, that brings a different thing as far as people trusting the vision AK has, which I completely understand that, but we shall see. All right, let's get into this next one, man. This one's from Vaughn.
What's up, Haize? This is Vaughn. So I just watched your last video, and you had asked at the end, what would you do at the trade deadline? So, me, I'm constantly thinking about all the multiple different moves that this team could make at the trade deadline, knowing at the end of the day, none of this shit going to happen. But I'm going to take my swing on it. There's been a lot of rumors about getting this star, that star, AD, Giannis, Zion, whoever. So I'm going to stick to the one that I think is the most realistic, even though it's not really my favorite player to acquire, and that's Zion Williamson. So I do think, there's some equity to having a star player. Zion's injury prone, so it's a risk. So this is the type of risk I would take. I would give them Nikola Vucevic, Patrick Williams, Kevin Huerter, Julian Phillips. I'd give them the Portland pick, and I'll give them, another first, probably 2027, lottery protected. Both those picks are lottery protected. One was lottery protected by Portland, and the other one will be lottery protected by us. The reason I do that is because if you're getting Zion, then the goal is playoffs. If we're not making playoffs, then, he must be injured or something like that. So we should be able to keep that pick, and that's how I feel about that. That's the calculated risk. They give us Zion Williamson, Kevon Looney, Saddiq Bey, and Jordan Hawkins. What this does for the Pelicans, though, is it actually clears up to $20 million off of their books, because they would get an expiring Vucevic, who they might just buy out off rip. They'd get expiring Kevin Huerter, and those two contracts alone will clear up about $20 million, while getting them 2 draft picks. So this would be a move that I think will work out for both teams. I like the pick of Saddiq Bey. He's playing really good. We're losing Julian Phillips, but we get someone like Jordan Hawkins. They're both on 2-year deals, so similar, timelines. And then the second trade I would make is actually a simple one, and it's also a financial move for the other team as well. I would make this move if I made the Zion move, regardless, like I would make this move. This is Zach Collins and Javon Carter and 2 second-round picks going to the Mavericks for Daniel Gafford and Caleb Martin. What this does for the Mavericks is this clears up almost $25 million for them. Just like the previous move, this would drop this team below the luxury tax as well next season. So both these moves help this team avoid the luxury tax. For the Mavs, Caleb Martin is a bad contract. He makes almost $10 million for 3 years. So we're taking that while giving them 2 seconds, 2 expirings, a guard in Javon Carter, who's pretty solid this year, and Zach Collins, who can stretch the floor if they want to keep someone like Anthony Davis. And both expire, so you can let them walk and save the money. We get Daniel Gafford. That's the biggest prize. And we take on the money of Caleb Martin. I would make both those moves, starting lineup, Giddey, Coby, Matas, Zion, Gafford. And then you got Ayo, Saddiq Bey, Okoro. My fault, the voicemail got cut off, but I ain't going to be too much longer. I know your limit. But yeah, off the bench, you would have Ayo, Saddiq Bey, Trey Jones, Isaac Okoro, and Jalen Smith. I think that's a solid little team that you would have right there. And if you can get both of those moves done, saving money for the Pelicans and the Mavs, I think it should be something they should look at. If it's not even those exact moves, those are the type of moves that the Bulls should be looking at to save a team some money while acquiring some talent, because we all know they're not going to tank. So that's my idea on it. Let me know what you think. Like I said, I'm not a big fan of Zion, but if you're getting off of Patrick Williams, Vucevic, and, you're taking a chance on that, I mean, sign me up. Give or take a few picks, whatever you want, but that's my idea. All right, peace.
All right, getting Zion for Vooch, P. Will, Huerter, Julian Phillips, and the Portland pick would be highway robbery for Zion. Listen, I don't even think the highest of Zion, but if you're able to get him basically for P. Will, Vooch, and expirings, I mean, that would probably be one of the more creative moves that we've ever seen AK make. Now, I highly doubt that it's going to happen to that. I get it that people think that because the Pelicans are where they are, that they're selling Zion low. And I would say that if they sell Zion low, there's still going to be a bidding war. And I just don't – there's going to be some team that's willing to offer some type of pick that's probably going to be a guaranteed lottery pick, even if you're just taking expirings back for Zion. So I just worry about that. Zion would have to want to come to Chicago if that happens, and I just don't know if that's going to be the case. Again, great move for the Bulls, and I'm not saying you didn't take into consideration some things with the Pelicans. I just don't necessarily think that they are selling Zion that low yet. But, hey, maybe I'm wrong in that one, right? Now, as far as the other trade for Gafford and Caleb Martin for Zach Collins and Daniel Zach Collins and can't remember the other player. I'm not mad at that. I'm not necessarily mad at that move. At this point, though, I kind of want to keep Zach Collins, but in getting Daniel Gafford for that, the problem with Gafford becomes like it's just I like Gafford, right? And then you're doubling down on Gafford and Jalen Smith. I kind of would like to keep Zach Collins if you get Gafford, but you can't get everything you want. It's not a bad trade, but I do think this. I don't think AK would want to take Caleb Martin's contract back and affect his cap flexibility heading into next year, because while Daniel Gafford is a huge get, I think that you still have to do other things with other positions if that's the case. And I don't necessarily see AK wanting to cut into that money before. Now, maybe they make that trade in the offseason after they go through their free agency. I just don't see that being something that they make at the trade deadline, if that makes sense, Vaughn. But not bad deals at all there. Shout out to Vaughn. All right, let's get into this next one, man. This one's from Shay.
What's up, Haize? This is Shay. Look, man. Hey, I know a lot of people are screaming trade Coby White, but let me tell y'all something. And remember, Haize, you even know this. I wasn't the biggest Coby White supporter, but one thing I will say, if Coby White hadn't been injured this year, he would have been an all-star. Not to mention, y'all forgot that a team in, I think, the Houston Rockets and the Orlando Magic, before they got Desmond Bain, was offering us like 3 first-round draft picks. Well, I don't know which team that was, and we ended up turning that down. Or was it 2? I know it was first-round picks, and we ended up turning that down. And I don't think we're going to get a much better deal than that. But it's just like some of these deals that y'all coming up with is literally fucking crazy. Look, Josh Giddey and Coby White have proven that they can play together. Now, I know Coby White has not been consistently here this year, but come on now, man. Y'all just looking to move him for anything and just looking for the first sign of panic. Now, I know that a team could use Coby White. But let's be honest, after what you saw last season, what you're starting to see this season with him and Josh Giddey, they have proven that they could play together. And on top of that, if Coby White comes in with a much more healthier season, like where his role doesn't change like this season was, it's just that he was just injured, you'll probably see a much better player. But, you know, a lot of y'all fans, y'all just want to jump to the nearest thing and to be sold to the highest bidder. Look, Coby White is worth keeping. And I think that we should use that to build around this young core. Anyway, hey, tell me what you think. Peace.
I do believe Coby and Giddey can play together, right? I think the biggest thing is that if you plan on keeping Coby, you can plan on keeping Coby, but then also does Coby want to stay here, right? And that's the question that the Bulls have to ask. I'm fine with a Giddey Coby backcourt. I think that it does kind of restrict what you need around those guys, but I'm fine with that. But I think when it comes down to the Bulls is that they may be forced to move Coby because of the contract. They may not feel comfortable paying him that, or they may think that another team is going to offer him more. And I think that's what it's going to go to. Now, I will say this. I do think Bulls fans decided a narrative on Coby once they heard he wasn't going to start or play the first month of the season. And then when the Bulls got out to start, I think they already decided their narrative. And they're not really looking at the reality of what's happening on the court. They're just focused on their narrative, right? So, like I said, I'm not completely against moving Coby, but I think that you only move Coby if it's a move that actually helps progress your team, right? People that are saying, let's just move Coby for expire. No, you don't do that. People saying, let's let Coby walk. No, you don't do that either, right? Now, I still do think they will keep Coby, but again, I will say that I could see if some of these moves and players that we've heard come available, that maybe that happens. All right, let's get into this last one, man. This one is from Ricky Carroll. Everybody's favorite uncle, Ricky Carroll.
Mr. Haize, this is Ricky Carroll. I've been following you guys for about the last 2 years. I really hadn't said much last time I said something about not watching the Bulls. only a couple of games. I think he got kind of about that. My reason was that really, I don't think he deserved a job. Okay, he done had 5 losing seasons, and he's still doing the same thing. Right quick, I ain't gonna say very much about this, but the guys have stopped playing for Billy because he do not back them. He don't have their back. I don't know if you guys ever played competitive basketball before, but when you bust your ass and your coach do not have your back, when you dive into the stand and people bust you in the head, like when Kobe was going to the basket, I don't know, maybe about 8 or 9 games ago, he's on the fast break. He got pushed. The boys that came back kept dead pushing the back. And Billy didn't say anything. And not say anything, he don't push it, he don't help them, he don't set them up. He ain't the voice that they need to get started. Boots, if you watch the last 5 games, and Patrick Williams too, the guys don't even get off the floor. Not only they don't jump, Boots don't jump, he don't stretch out for loose ball. Patrick, he don't jump. He don't go for loose balls. There are counselors on this team. And for some reason, Giddey always telegraphing his passes. If you look the last 5 or 6 games, he have lost passes, man. The whole Bulls team, they throw lob passes. They don't put any emphasis on passing the ball. Lob passes, behind the back dribbles to other players for shots. There's a counselor on the team, Billy, Booch, and Patrick Williams. And I believe if you get rid of those 3, you can have conflict on the court with other players without being a big thing. I mean, they can work to it, they can pat them on the back or on the butt side. Say, come on, man, you got to get that man, you got to die for that ball. They can't do that now. Because 1, I don't think Billy will allow them. 2, Boots don't want nobody saying anything to him. 3, Patrick Williams don't say a damn thing. I don't care. They probably could do something really wrong to him, but he ain't gonna say nothing. He gonna look at him and just go down court and not give a damn. Don't play no defense. Don't go in there. How many layups has he lost? If he go, and you know what? One other thing before I go. Patrick, I'll continue from my first conversation. Patrick don't have no handles. Between he and Giddey, the teams know if they be physical and the referees do not call any calls, all they got to do is get in front of them and bump them. Not foul them, just bump them. And they lose the ball, and of course they don't have any hustle to get to the ball. So we got 3 counselors on that team. And until we get rid of them, the Bulls not going to do very much this season.
Billy Donovan isn't passionate enough. And I don't want to simplify your message because you talked about a lot of things of Billy not getting fired up, not going to bat for his players, all those type of things. I don't think Billy has ever been the most fired up coach. And not every coach is that, right? But I will say this, there are some times where I do want to see some fire from Billy Donovan. We've seen a little bit of it at times, but I think the thing that bothers me more so about Billy than him getting fired up when a player gets pushed or anything like that is why don't you call challenges sometimes? Why don't you understand when and where to pull players out? Why do you have such blind loyalty to Nikola Vucevic? These are the type of things that I talk about with Billy Donovan, even more so than getting fired up, because I don't think every coach has that personality to get fired up. Now, I will say, I would love to have a coach on the Bulls sideline. When Tibbs was there, Tibbs got fired. He lost his voice every single game, right? So, I would love that for this team, and I can't blame you or anybody else who wants to see that type of coach on the sideline for a team because it does add a dynamic, and I do think it gets your guys rallied. If you see your coach going off on the sideline, how do you not get fired up, right? Absolutely. When I played football, listen, if Major Smalls, who was he was a major, we called him Major, who was my football coach, if he got fired up on the sideline, you goddamn right, I would run through a wall as a running back for him if that was the case, right? So I understand where you're coming from there completely, Ricky, and we haven't always agreed on everything, but I get where you're coming from. I just think expecting that from Billy at this point, Billy's not that guy. He's not that guy. So, we'll see if the Bulls do ever move on from Billy Donovan, which I still have my thoughts. I still have my thoughts on. But that's going to do it for today's episode of Chicago Bulls Central. Until the game tonight, the rumors aren't going to slow down. The games aren't getting any easier, and the decisions ahead for this franchise are massive, right? But make sure you guys like the video, subscribe to the channel as well. Always drop your thoughts down below. Who stays, who goes, what the direction is really heading, this team is really heading in, and how do you feel about tonight's matchup against the Pelicans? But make sure you guys are following us at Bulls Central Pod. You can send us any feedback, questions, comments, concerns. BullsCentralPod@gmail.com. Lastly, if you want to leave a text message and our voicemail for the mailbag, the number to do so, 773-270-2799. We are the #1 spot for everything Chicago Bulls related, but that is thanks to you, lovely and beautiful people. And like I like to end every episode on, go Bulls. Love you guys. See you ready for Ken, y'all. Peace.
This has been a presentation of the Break Media.